Hey, Forge fans, it is the match day preview. Anthony Urciuoli here on the Forge Audio Network, wherever and however you may be watching and or listening. Forge coach Bobby Smyrniotis sent me a cease and desist, so I did have to shave my beard off. You get the full effect of the fall air. It's nice and crisp. It's a little cold, but Bobby requested it. And of course, I'm only kidding. But speaking of Bobby, we're going to hear from the coach, Bobby Smyrniotis, in moments. We're also going to hear from Forge keeper Triston Henry, as Forge, they got one game left in the regular season. It's at home. It's against Halifax. It's at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Now, I'll run it down for you a little later in the episode, but if you didn't think there was a reason, head on down to Tim Hortons Field this weekend. There are so many promotions, prizes. It's fan appreciation game. So it's all about the fans, and there's plenty in store for you. I know it's Thanksgiving weekend. You're probably looking for an excuse to get out and away from the family, especially the ones that are in from out of town. Here's a perfect opportunity to get away for a few hours, head on down to Tim Hortons Field, and watch some soccer. What's better than that? And a week before the playoffs start, it's kind of setting the mood there. It's just going to be a nice, relaxing day at Tim Hortons Field, but not if you are the players, because there is still plenty at stake here for Forge FC. Here are the scenarios as we get closer to the playoffs. So I mentioned Forge playing Halifax at home. Forge is in third place right now on the CPL table. Top four get in. That's already been clinched. That's already been decided. You got Ottawa, you got Pacific, you got Forge, and you have Cavalry. What we don't know is who's going to be playing who, because those top four can all be shuffled in this final week of the season. With a win by Forge FC and a loss or tie by Pacific, who play Cavalry, Forge will finish in second place. So Forge have to win, Pacific have to either tie or lose in their match against Cavalry. If that happens, Forge will finish in second place, which is huge for multiple reasons. Number one, you will get to host the second leg of the semifinal. It's always a little better hosting the second of the two legs because you already know what happened in the first one. You kind of already, you know exactly what's at stake heading into that match at home. You feel a little more in control of that situation. Not so much when you're opening at home. Forge is confident either way, but it's always a little better to get that second match at home in a two-leg aggregate series, and away goals are no longer a factor. So the tiebreaker is, you go to added time. So Forge looking to get in that top two spot. If that happens, if Forge finish second, they will host their first playoff game in the semifinal against their opponent yet to be determined on October 23rd. If Forge finish third or fourth, they will host the first leg of that playoff match on October 15th. So if they finish third or fourth, 15th, finish second, they play on the 23rd. Now here's another reason why that's huge is finishing in that second spot for Forge. You have that much better of a chance of hosting a championship game. So if you finish second, the only way you would not host a championship game is if Ottawa makes it to the final. But if Pacific or Cavalry make it to the final, it's a one-game final. The higher seed gets to play that match at home, which is massive. And this year there's no CONCACAF in between where Forge is traveling, to different countries and all of a sudden having to play a championship game 2 days later, like it happened last year. That's not going to be the case. Whoever is the higher seed is going to host that match with a week's rest at home. Massive. So second place is where Forge want to be, and it will depend on Pacific and Cavalry and then Forge securing 3 points. Now, Pacific Cavalry do play Saturday night, so depending on when you're catching up on your Forge content, the match may have already been played, so go confirm, and it'll kind of determine how much Forge is in control in this match on Sunday and how much they are playing for. But here's the other thing. We've talked about this quite a bit. I know I've talked about it. Forge have looked a little tight over the last few weeks compared to when they went on that 6-game winning streak where they were just looked completely invisible. Scoring 3 goals per match, their goals for against. They went through a stretch. It was not the most sustainable. I don't think any club could have sustained that for an entire season, but there's been a drop off. And they just haven't looked as loose, fluid. I use the word instinctual a lot. When there's a flow to their game when things are going well. And that flow hasn't quite been there. And because of that, you have a match now. You have a tune-up match ahead of the playoffs. This is exactly what you're looking for if you're Forge FC. Some pressure's off. There's not a ton at stake, perhaps. And going into this match against Halifax, you can give guys some minutes. You can rest guys. You have more freedom over your roster. You know, Forge loves its depth, and they're happy to go with any starting 11 available to them. But it's just a nice opportunity to play a match where there's not a ton of pressure on you. You can play a little more loose, have a little more fun. You're at home. It's the fan appreciation match. Plenty of promotions and prizes for the fan. Everyone's just kind of you're in a different mood. It's kind of the calm before the playoff storm. And maybe that's exactly what the doctor ordered for this club, who hopes to perform better than they have as of late. We're going to check in now with the players. We're also going to check in with Halifax and see what their mood is going into this, because they really aren't playing for much except for players playing for their careers. I mean, they're playing for jobs next season, maybe not in the CPL, but maybe elsewhere. So it's an important match for every individual player, but we'll get kind of a glimpse into the mindset of both clubs as they head into this match on Sunday at 1 o'clock at Tim Hortons Field. Triston Henry. We don't know who the starting 11 is going to be. As you know, Forge keeps it very close to the vest. Usually we don't know until about an hour before kickoff. But Triston Henry, whether he's starting or whether he's being rested for the postseason, Henry spoke about his approach going into this final match and then beyond, because it's been a season with so much parity, 3 points so hard to come by on a match-to-match basis. Here's Triston Henry as the club heads down now to the most important matches of the season.
I think it would be important for us to go and try and win that game, and we want to finish second and get the home field advantage. So yeah, it's gonna be an important game for us.
And when you just see how much parity there's been this season and how difficult it's been for all the teams to get 3 points, do you get the feeling that it's kind of anyone's postseason, regardless of the seed that you're finished in?
Yeah, I think when it comes to playoffs and big games, it's about the team that's in the having hitting the right stride at the right time, and so I think it's anyone's game when it comes to the playoffs, really.
Now, we also had a chance to catch up with head coach and technical director Bobby Smyrniotis, who in his pre-match media conference, he talked about the club's mental states, mental kind of approach to this one. The psychology of these soccer matches going into them. What is Forge's approach going to be? We're also going to hear from Bobby. He talks about, how is he going to handle his roster? Players that are maybe in some card trouble, maybe players that have battled kind of minor but lingering injuries. How do you approach the lineup here, and who plays and who doesn't? So some good stuff from Bobby. Here is the coach ahead of this match against Halifax.
Yeah, I think there's a few things you look at. One is you always want to try and create some momentum and having a good performance. So number one thing is the performance has to be good. After that, this is kind of your last opportunity to try some new things or different things if you want to see when you get into the playoff scenarios where now you're going to be playing any of the teams that will face for the fifth time in the season, and seeing if there's something different maybe that you want to look at before you get there. And then the third is it's a game in front of us. It's 3 points, and we always want to add to our tally of where we are in the standings. Yeah, it's something we'll look at. We'll know where everything kind of stands before our game. But like I said, it's also a final tune-up game to be able to see certain things. So I think we'll look at it from a tactical perspective, but of course we won't put anyone that has any level of risk into a match, knowing on what's coming in the week following that.
How would you maybe sum up the season to this point for your club, if kind of a Coles Notes version of a breakdown of the season that Forge has had?
Yeah, well, there's a few things we look at because sometimes we look at maybe what's the recent past and the last few weeks or the last month, which haven't been the best for us, but I don't think it's been the best for anyone in the league, and that's why we see everyone within 4 points of each other at this point. But if we look at it and we say where we started and where we are, I think it's been a fantastic season. I'll go on a little small point. If things can go well for us on Sunday and we get 3 points, we're at 47 points. What I say is our best footballing season, which I thought was last year, we were at 50 points. So we're not that far off of that mark. Then you look at the accomplishments that we've had this year, and we're a club that's played in Champions League. We started this year off training in mid-January. That means it's a long season for all the boys in the change room. And we've gone out there and been the first team from this league to compete in Champions League. And we've also competed for a Canadian Championship this year against Toronto FC, where we've lost, unfortunately, in a shootout after a great 1-1 match. Then you go into the league play. I think there's been a lot of brilliant moments, a lot of fantastic football. But like with every team this year, you've seen ups and downs. And I think that's what's going to make this final stretch very interesting, because there's nobody really pulling away from the pack.
Something else Bobby talked about that I want to make sure we get to. Kyle Becker, he served his suspension. He came back in that match against Pacific. Kyle has logged an unfathomable amount of minutes over the last few years between league play, between CONCACAF, between the Canadian Championship. Not only is Kyle starting in these matches, we seem to be celebrating a player reaching their 100th match on a weekly basis at this point, which is a fantastic thing for Forge FC and speaks a lot to the success of this club, the continuity. But also, what underneath that, a guy like Kyle, not only is he playing a lot of matches, he hit that 100 so long ago, it seems like. He hit that 100 a long time. That's the way it feels like. It was years ago, but it was months ago. Still, though, way ahead of everybody else. So that speaks to Kyle. He's not just playing in these matches, though. He's logging a ton of minutes. And if you watch Kyle Becker play, there is not a player in the world. I will stand by that. You can challenge me to it. I will defend that. There isn't a player in this sport, in the universe, okay, the world, I don't know what's happening outside of Earth, but the world, that logs as many hard minutes as Kyle Becker. It is at 110 every time he's on the field. He's not taking any time off. And he's a very intense guy. Sometimes it gets the better of them, but that's what makes Kyle great. You have to take the whole package. It's Kyle Becker. He's your captain. He's your engine. He's a big part of that nucleus of this club and of those titles. And Bobby talked about Kyle's, not only his contributions to the club, but the fact that suspension may be a blessing at the end of the day, because it gave a guy rest ahead of some very difficult minutes that are coming up for Forge with these playoff weeks on the horizon. So here's Bobby.
The club.
Yeah, of course, you obviously don't want to lose a player out to a suspension and so on, but sometimes things work out. He's played a lot of minutes this year. I think it was a moment in there where he probably needed some time off one way or another. He would have had that, and just making sure you're fresh, because we know that getting into these 2-game playoffs, whatever it is in front of us, it's going to be a massive grind. We've seen across the league this year a big preference towards the defensive structures, towards a lot less in the attacking football. So I think we'll see a lot more of that when we come to the playoffs. So I think it's going to be a big battle, whoever the opponents are in whichever round we're in. So we need to make sure that we've got everyone as healthy and as fresh as possible. And that's we're looking at with a few guys who maybe have some card issues, but also some players who we think just need those extra couple of days to be prepared. It's not our first time going into, as a staff, into elimination type of matches coming up in the next week. So it's always important that we've prepared.
All right. Thank you, Bobby. Now, before I tell you about all of the fantastic promotions and themes and all the great stuff happening Sunday at Tim Hortons Field for the fan appreciation match between Forge and Halifax at 1 o'clock, I want to check in with Halifax. Halifax has had a very difficult season. It looked at points that Halifax might be one of those clubs that kind of like Halifax in many ways, they could have been the Valor of this season. That club where, yes, there's a little bit of roughness around the edges, but a club that plays well defensively, good on the counter, really good at home, at making sure that their home stadium is a difficult place to play. And Halifax was that club for chunks of the season, but it wasn't sustained. And it makes Halifax an intriguing club this season, but also going into next. And I do feel, and I really believe this, if you are a fan of Forge FC, if you're a fan of the CPL, you really do. Maybe, you're a Forge fan, that's where your allegiance lie, but you're kind of a fan of the entire league. I mean, you do want to see every team succeed because a solid Halifax team is good for Forge. A quality Edmonton club is still good for Forge. The better this league is, just from a market-to-market basis, and as it expands, that'll be the same thing. It's good for Forge because it's good for everybody. It's good for this league. I know it's corny, but the "We Are One" theme that the CPL came out with during its inaugural season and a little bit beyond that as well. I mean, it's true. We need everyone to be successful, healthy in this league for it to be a great league, and it's certainly been that this season. I don't know many leagues in the world that offered the amount of parity and the amount of unpredictability and the amount of highlight reel goals and just, quality from places you don't always know where it's coming from. This is a league that keeps surprising you, and we're getting to a point where it's no longer going to be a surprise. It's just going to be what's expected of this league. Halifax coach, Stephen Hart, quality coach with some challenges with his lineup this season. So here is Stephen speaking ahead of their match in Hamilton against Forge.
Well, I think it's important for for the approach to be more realistic and level-headed. We have 8 players that are first-time professionals. There's a first year in professional football, and 5 that it's only their second year. So it's no coincidence that the 3 youngest teams are the 3 teams at the bottom of the table. So you have to always balance that and be realistic. Are you building, or do you want to be able to compete right off the bat? And that's a difficult situation to manage. And I spoke to the players, and as I said, I know there was a level of disappointment, but the second half performance against Ottawa, if I appeal to them to try and take that forward into the next game. They know what they're coming up against. Forge wants to be in the best possible position to host. They cannot get the first place position, but in second place they still maintain an opportunity to host. So they know what they're up against.
All right, so that's our situation this weekend. Forge FC looking to get into second place. They can with a win and a loss or tie from Pacific. Reminder, playoff tickets on sale now. The home match will either be October 15th or October 23rd. The 15th match is on a Saturday, 23rd on a Sunday. And those tickets, by the way, are available now. You can secure your tickets to that home playoff match regardless of which day it is played on. So go to forgefc.ca/tickets for that. This Sunday, though, come down to Tim Hortons Field, cheer on your squad. It's a fan appreciation match. And the promotion of all promotions, $99, gets you 4 tickets in the white section and a $25 Tim Hortons Field rewards card. So 4 tickets for $99 plus $25 to spend at the stadium. Also available at forgefc.ca. And there is a promotion right now between Forge and the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. If you get a Forge ticket, you also get a free ticket to the museum. And it's only $20. $20 gets you a ticket to the Forge match and entry into the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. Speaking of the CWHM, because I've already fumbled Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum a couple of times. There will be a flyover this match, and Forge will be wearing their grays at home, which they usually wear orange, but they're wearing their grays because those grays are a salute to the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. So they'll be wearing their grays. There'll be a flyover. A lot of fun. And because it is the fan appreciation match on Sunday, there are going to be prizes upon prizes upon prizes. The list is so long, I don't even know if it'll be boring to tell you or not, but I'll run through them because these are all the prizes available this Sunday. $50 Tim Hortons Field Rewards card, $100 Tim Hortons gift card, a Forge jersey, 5 of those will be given away, merchandise prize packs, $25 gas cards, $50 to Moxie's restaurant, 2 season seats will be given away for next season. Prizes, like I said, and these aren't just like one of each. Some of the prizes, there are 10 to give away, there are 5, there are 2. A lot of prizes, and if you are attending the match, you can never forget this. $5 beers before kickoff. So many reasons to get down to Tim Hortons Field on Sunday for the tune-up ahead of the postseason. We will have playoff football played at Tim Hortons Field. I should specify because there are 2 different teams that play there. Playoff soccer for sure, maybe football as well. We don't know yet, but soccer for sure. Playoff soccer coming to you. Make sure you're a part of it. forgefc.ca/tickets. All right. You know the drill. I've said it all. We know everything now. We've learned everything. Forge FC Halifax, 1 o'clock on Sunday. Be there. I'll be there. And I hope to see you there.
Forge FC is prepared, and now you are informed. This has been Match Day Preview with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.